Hello and welcome to the CX Files podcast. I'm your host, Mark Hillary. We have a travel theme for you this week. Alan Graham is the Chief Commercial Officer at Mindpearl, based in Cape Town, South Africa. Mindpearl is a multilingual customer experience service company with a particular expertise in the travel industry. The company was born in 1999 when a consortium of 11 European airlines, led by Swissair, decided that they needed a better way to manage their customer experience. Fast forward to today, and although they still have a strong expertise in travel and airlines, the company does offer business process outsourcing services to other industries, such as retail and telecoms. I talked to Alan about some of the issues faced by travel customers, and in particular, the type of channels they prefer to use and how to manage the 24/7 customer expectations of the modern travel industry. Okay, so let's go straight to the interview. Great. Okay. I know that you're very focused on supporting the airline and travel industries. And these companies, they still generally tend to prefer to work with voice when they interact with their customers. And is that because the customers, when they have a problem, they want it fixed immediately while they've got somebody on the phone? Or is there's some other factor that's specific for this industry?
Yes, there are a bunch of factors which come into play here, Mark. The wider travel sector in general is certainly adopting technology and automation and social media. And the more straightforward transactions can be, and they are increasingly handled by non-voice. One simple example would be straightforward flight booking. You want to fly from point A to point B, you go to the website, you select the flight, the time and the price, and you complete the transaction with your credit card details. But predominantly voice is still critical for more complex transactions which might involve multiple stops, for example, various different airlines, different time zones, or just something that for whatever reason cannot be completed or solved via the website or a technology channel. And then the elements of emotion and language can come into play, particularly in the travel sector more than most. And when that complex transaction is required, then often the customer does want voice because they want to speak to a human in the native tongue, and one that understands additionally their culture, regardless of where they are in the world. So this is especially true when, as you mentioned, things go wrong, when travel plans change, or there's an incident such as a major weather event, or there's a strike, and human intervention becomes a very high priority. And we have to remember also that travel for many people is not a daily or a weekly occurrence. So, for example, someone planning an annual family trip, and this would like to be a big event and a major expense for them, they may feel more comfortable interacting with the human versus doing everything through automation or just using technology. So yes, voice is certainly important in travel and airline for all of these reasons, not just when there is a problem.
Mm-hmm. And so is there anything changing then? I mean, not necessarily regarding technology for automation and using different channels, but are we seeing things like data being used to personalize calls? So what I mean is there more technology use that's actually changing the way the voice call center works?
Yes, without a doubt, data is being used more and more by organizations to help understand their customers, and that translates through into the contact center. They want to understand the customer across the entire experience, and this is not a new thing. If we look at the development of general customer relationship management over the years. But in voice centers, what we're seeing is that the voice contact center is moving towards a cloud-based sort of ACD solution, which enables the captive, or let's call it the main or the client contact center, to share their calls with multiple BPOs or multiple voice centers. And this essentially allows the client organizations to monitor and to manage all their voice centers using a single statistics and reporting solution. So in other words, the partner center or the vendor voice center may be one in several in a network, particularly where the customer base is a global customer base and overall work can indeed be split to share calls. And different types of activities can be funneled appropriately, driven by the factors such as the originating point of call, the language requirement, the service type, and of course the time of day or night. So the use of data to enable this is really important. And all of this also enables the organization to better leverage their internal personal data to provide that consistency and then enhance customer experience through the integration with other cloud services for things like CMS, quality surveys, satisfaction surveys, callback solutions, and so on and so forth. So that use of data is becoming very, very critical indeed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I know that you've got several centres globally located, including some places that are less commonly used, such as Fiji and Peru. What's the main driver for this global footprint? I mean, is it just because you're trying to access native speakers?
Well, language capability and native speakers are certainly part or one of the drivers. But native speakers are key not only in the travel sector due to language, but they're also key because of a cultural understanding. And what I mean by that is an agent may be able to speak a language perfectly, grammatically correctly, due to years of learning at school and college, but that doesn't always translate into a cultural understanding or indeed a geographical knowledge of the caller. So the actual location of the centre is important here, but there are other considerations such as the flexibility of the workforce, the sustainability of the workforce, and the fact that we're working across time zones means that a follow-the-sun service delivery is pretty much high on the agenda for a number of client organizations. So a multi-location footprint helps deliver the overall cost efficiency as well as that follow the sun. And additionally, one key aspect today is operational resilience and business continuity. And they're both enabled by a multi-location footprint. If I look at some of the major events that we as a company have supported our clients through in the last 20 years, and that includes everything from the 9/11 New York attacks to the more recent Japanese tsunami and even more recently the Brussels airport bombing. A multi-location footprint has been totally essential for us to provide the level of reactivity and support for our clients and their customers. So the drivers for locations are certainly, as you point out, the ability to have native speakers, but the whole continuity of the business comes into play as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you mentioned that, a little earlier around social media is used less often by the customers you're working with. But what about tools like chat and click-to-chat systems? I mean, is chat working alongside voice, and is that growing now?
Yeah, I would say in general, chat is working and it is growing. It's not growing as quickly as one might perceive. I think to be most effective or to be more effective, chat and click-to-chat has to be part of an overall digital solution which is offered by the organization. And that's across all the touch points that their customers have, rather than being offered in isolation. Once that's in place, I think we'll see much more growth. So today, many of those systems are actually proprietary and almost closed systems. So therefore, that means they're expensive to deploy and expensive to maintain. But as we see more open protocols becoming available for these systems, then there will be more growth because it helps the customer across more touch points and it helps the organization to see the customer data across the business. And jumping back to the social media, adoption in travel is less than or less widespread than we perhaps see in other sectors, but we see an increasing use of social media, particularly during unexpected operations which are caused by weather or operational delays. And imagine you're stuck in an airport, the flight's delayed, and there's limited information available as to when or why the delays happened or when you're going to fly. And you look around, there's a big queue at the information desk, and you phone the call center, and the number's constantly engaged because everyone's doing the same thing. So people are turning to their smartphones for the web chat, for the click-to-chat, and for the social media options. And as a BPO supporting multiple airlines, we're seeing this as a major growth channel, and not only just under these circumstances, because that customer base are becoming more educated. So this is becoming more and more commonplace. And social media essentially affords ease of use. It's direct access. There's no IVR. You send your query direct and they resolve it. So they're generally easy to navigate. But as I say, in travel, more than most sectors, customer service is not a 9-to-5 operation. People want ease of access, and both social media and chat will and are growing, but that growth is limited by the technology which integrates that into the rest of the organization and the rest of those customer touchpoints.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, historically in travel, we've always felt that the kind of high street travel agent, your sort of TUI, Thomas Cook, those kind of companies, they can offer a very personal service because you're literally going in to talk to somebody about your travel plans. But I've read some reports recently from some of the big online travel agencies who are saying that they expect in the next couple of years that they will be able to offer a much more personal service because they have your browsing history, they know your booking history, they know what you like, what you dislike, and so they will actually be able to offer a much more personal service than just going to talk to somebody. I mean, but how does that change the way that the customer service function needs to work? Because it seems that your team is no longer just going to be taking bookings, but they need to start offering advice as well. Have you seen this kind of level of personalization? If it's not in action yet, are people already talking about it?
Yeah, we have, and it's been developing over the years, and I think there are limitations as to the technology that's been in play, which, as we've mentioned, is improving. So, we have seen examples where personalization's improved through better integration of channels, but again, it's more the exception than the norm. And we already train our agents in the standard sales, customer service, but now more and more complex skills on top of those basic aspects, because the requirement for agents that are able to satisfy many and more complex requests is growing, and more of those simplistic tasks are being satisfied by web and chatbots and other self-service. Digital integration plays a big part in this because the agent must have the capability of that information at their fingertips. And because there's not enough integration in the systems and the touch points and the channels, then it makes it a more laborious task. So it ultimately impacts on the customer and the cost of servicing that customer. But the skill set required becomes more complex, considering that agent may not only have to talk the language, but understand the systems. And in the case of airlines, it can be a more complex system. But they will have to work across platforms, and considering the traditional channels and the digital channels, when they're better integrated, it will improve that data flow and availability and the information available to the agent at the desktop to essentially be able to advise the caller, the customer, on a whole gamut of options. So it's not just booking a flight or booking a special meal. It's when you get to your destination, do you want a hotel? Do you want car hire? It's all those ancillaries. And certain airlines, in our experience, are making big inroads to this using the digital platform as the central focus point. So as the customer base or the younger generation becomes the customer base, they're much more comfortable in using that smartphone to contact the service provider. And if that can be done in one central point, then it makes it easier for everyone. So we are some way from that today, and that's what we see in reality, but it is moving in the right direction. But there is limiting technology today, but it is improving all the time.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. Please take a moment to review the podcast because this helps other listeners to find it. And if you have any suggestions, then get in touch with me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm @Mark Hillary with 2 L's, or just search Google for Mark Hillary.